Welcome back to the bench. And if this is your first time with us, welcome to the bench. It's chaotic but cozy. Here we are. We're about to kick off the 2025 second half or I guess into 2026 rather. And for those that are celebrating the new year or just ready for 2025 to be over, I understand that. But 2026 is upon us. And there's a lot of good basketball ahead of us. And I think it's never too early, especially for crazy folks like these three. It's never too early to talk about ESPN Bracketology and how kind of strange that can be at times. So let's go ahead and dive into that because I think there's some interesting points already. Do we want to start out with like the last four, next four, first four out, and the last four buys? Or are we talking about the top seeds here? Because I think there's conversation to be had from top to bottom.
The last four buys, the last four in, the first four out, that's going to be a revolving door for the next like 3 months. You're going to have your IUs that are in the last four buys lose to like a team like Minnesota again and be on that first four out. You're going to have teams like sneak in, like Iowa, for example, is going to flirt back and forth into the top 25. They're going to be in that like comfortable 6 to 7 seed range and then drop all the way down to like maybe an at large. It's just going to be like this yo-yo for the next like 3 or 4 months. And that's always like, I think one of the more fun parts about March, but it's hard to like armchair quarterback that when you're in December. In December, you can really like kind of like fine-tooth comb who your top seats are going to wind up being because you hit that week 6, you've established your top 12. You're starting to look into going into 2026 in a conference play on who your real players are. So like me personally, just because I like getting the meat and potatoes of college basketball, I like to talk about the top seeds.
And so right now, ESPN has Arizona, Michigan, UConn, and Iowa State.
Yeah, there's absolutely no surprise there. And I think we've talked about this like a million times that UConn is like literally just got the clearest runway to a 1 seed that any team has ever had in the history of anything. I mean, they handled business in their non-con. They lost one time to Arizona with 2 starters out, and it was only by a couple points. So, I mean, like they've got an anemic Big East schedule that's not going to punish them too god awful hard because they did handle business in the non-con. So they're going to be at 1 seed no matter what. Like I don't see that changing unless they absolutely fall apart throughout conference play.
Look, it's shocking to me that UConn got the one over Duke. Like they have the same wins, and Duke probably has a better win in Michigan State than anything UConn has right now. So you're punishing them for a 1-point loss on a neutral court versus where UConn lost at home to Arizona. Like I don't understand that difference. I would have gotten Duke at the 1 line just based on resume. That's what's always hard to tell with these like brackets that are coming out in December, February, or like not February, but December, November, and January. Like how much of them are the resume that's happened versus projecting forward. And if I was ever to make these brackets, it would always be I'm doing it as the resume stands right now. I'm not going to project forward because that's where you get foolishness. I would throw Duke, and not just because I'm wearing a Duke sweatshirt, but Duke ahead of UConn. I would have thought their resume looked better with the wins they've had versus what UConn's had. That's only just tough.
Where I would argue, I think at the end of the year, Duke will have a better resume because their conference is tougher than the Big East. I mean, they're going to have North Carolina twice. They're going to have Louisville. They're going to have a couple really tough teams like in Wake Forest and NC State and who else? Wake Forest.
Virginia's shaping up to be a real...
Yeah, Virginia. Sorry, I was blanking pretty hard there. They're going to have some tough games, but they got to get out alive. And I think one of the things that's kind of plagued this Duke team is like sometimes they like play with their food. It's kind of what happened with Texas Tech. I would argue that UConn's loss to Arizona with 2 starters out versus Duke's loss to Texas Tech with fully manned on a neutral is probably the better loss for UConn. It looks better on paper, and that's where they're going to get the edge, and that's where the committee is going to see. I would say, in my personal opinion, if Duke goes undefeated in conference play or gets 1 loss in conference play versus a 1-loss Big East UConn, I would give the edge to Duke personally because it's a tougher conference. I'm pretty sure, like, the high school basketball team that I played on in 2022 could compete in the Big East, or 2002 could compete in the Big East right now. Like, it's just, I'm watching Seton Hall and Marquette right now, and it just makes me not like basketball. It's 69-64 with 4 minutes and 30 seconds left, and I don't know who I want to lose or who I want to win. Like, I just want the game to be over. But no, I think you have an argument. I think you have an argument for Duke probably in February or March. I don't think you have one right now. I think the recency bias is going to really hurt.
It's just like I'm counting that Michigan State win at Michigan State more than anything UConn's done, and that was like it because it depends on how you look at it. This is what would be fun to hear in the committee room. Does wins count more than losses, or does losses, like who you lose to, matter more than who you won? So, and that changes every year depending on who the committee is. So that's always interesting to figure out. But like to me, it's always about who you beat, because if you went to somebody's house, beat them at their house, like that's a fairly significant win, and that's not discounting anything UConn's done. They have some good wins with like BYU and
they have
Kansas,
a
decent
great
wins.
win.
If we're splitting hairs between the top 5 teams, that's where I would have leaned. But obviously, you and Joey Brackets here prefer UConn because
Well, I'm just like, it's
we know Joey hates any big market team anyway. So he goes against that choice. So it's Duke was the bigger market team than UConn, so he's like, we'll knock them down. That's how I see it in this.
Going off of what you said, going into somebody's house and winning one of the other number 1 seeds, Iowa State, I don't think there's any argument there. I mean, argument for any Purdue fan would be Purdue played their absolute worst game they'll probably play all year, but Iowa State went in and handled business, and they've handled business everywhere else, and there's no denying that they're a number 1 seed right now. They are playing in an absolutely like gridiron tough Big 12 conference, and like between them, like we're looking at these Big 12 teams. It's just an absolute gauntlet. I think whoever wins that conference is going to wind up number 1 seed. I think you only get one number 1 seed out of that conference, though. And that's kind of like how I'm thinking about, like with Michigan as well. Like if Michigan hangs on and like keeps playing the way they are and wins the Big Ten, I think they're a lock for a number 1 seed. But the Big Ten is also a gauntlet. Like, a team that people have kind of like forgot about because they suffered a 23-point loss at home is a number 2 seed Purdue right now, but they've just quietly averaged 30-point wins over the course of the last 4 games. They beat Power Conference and Auburn, Power Conference and Marquette, which, Marquette's down right now, Auburn's down right now, and then handled a Kent State team that will probably make the tournament this year by 40. I mean, Kent State is always flirting. They've only got 3 losses now on the year. One of them was a bad loss to Troy, but, coming into Mackey, Kent State didn't even put up a fight. So, and that's like a credit to how Purdue has responded since losing to Iowa State. But right now, with the 4 number 1s that are projected, I don't really have an argument.
Yeah, and
I mean,
Purdue's best win is what Alabama had Alabama, which is a great win, but Alabama hasn't done its part to hold that up. So I think 2 is based on right now is fine.
Right now, yeah.
I think if Purdue goes through and handles their business through the Big Ten and gets a win, or at least a win against Michigan State, and handles Illinois too, if they get those, they have a great chance to scoot up to the 1 line. But I'm interested why you think Big 12 couldn't grab 2 1 seeds, because you're looking at Arizona and Iowa State, who I think has the best options to do it.
So I hear that Arizona right now is like them and Michigan are the runaway number 1 seeds. Like, I'm not even looking in the rearview mirror. They're like Lightning McQueen down the track right now. I mean, it's almost like a foregone conclusion that they were like the 2023, 2024 UConn Purdue teams that were just like dominating everybody that they played. But they both have like the same gauntlet ahead of them. Like Michigan plays in a really, really tough Big Ten. They play at Purdue. They play at Michigan State. Those are really, really tough games. Arizona, I mean, look at the Big 12. I mean, the Big 12 is not a joke this year. You got Iowa State, you got Texas Tech, you got Kansas. It is BYU. I mean, it's just like you're flirting with disaster every other week. I think if I remember correctly, I think like Arizona has like a 5-game stretch where every team that they play is ranked. And where SEC last year had 2 1 seeds with Auburn and Florida, they would have to just ride a really fine line between two teams dominating that entire season and like coming down to the wire, like coming down to like a half game split somewhere where they have somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose to figure this thing out. I mean, this is like, it's just hard to imagine like the Big Ten getting 2 1 seeds, not going to happen. The Big 12 getting 2 1 seeds, I mean, it's got the most possibility out of any other conference, but it's just going to be really, really hard.
Because I could see a Duke North Carolina version of something happening in Big 12 where you've got Arizona, who has obviously put in all the work, and I think they've got some cushion in that 1 seed to drop a game or two. And
Yeah.
you've got a chance of because Arizona has some cushion with the way they have, and Michigan too. If you want to look at Big 10 getting 2-1s, have so much cushion where they've absolutely handled their business. They've beat the teams they've beat, and they have beat them for the most part handily.
Yeah.
So they could drop a couple of those games. Like you could lose if you only had one head-to-head with Purdue. If you're Michigan, you could lose that one to still hold on to your 1 seed, or Michigan State. Like, who are your options to take that second one? Or like, even if you're Arizona, you could lose to say a Houston or at BYU or something like that, and still hold on to that one where it drags, or Houston gets to pull Houston or an Iowa State and all that can pull themselves up by beating you. And it's one of those where, because UConn is where they're at. Like, their resume is not getting any better. It can only go down because the Big East is so bad. And Duke can improve it a little bit based on how Virginia and Louisville do in North Carolina. But after that, but Duke also has Michigan left on the schedule, so that's Duke has a lot of chances here to go up and down. I don't think the other 1 seeds out there right now have a great way to keep climbing up, where the ones in the Big 12 and Big 10 have the ability to move up. And because Arizona and Michigan have done what they've done in the non-conference, it's allowed the possibility of we could see literally 2 conferences grab the 1 seats.
Yeah, and it's entirely possible. I think we're going to, we already talked about our 1 seeds, and I think, we're all in agreement that Michigan, Arizona, and Iowa State, based on the resume right now, are 100% locks, and then we're like 50-50 on UConn and Duke. But if you were looking at the other 2 seeds, obviously Purdue is a 2 seed. I think that's right where Purdue wants to be. They want to fly right under that radar, because I think when they operate with a target on their back, they play different. Right now, the way Purdue's moving is just completely different. Like, there's been an intensity since that Iowa State game that I've seen that I really like. They're starting to get some production out of our smaller guys, like your CJ Cox, your Dakar Harris, your Jack Benner's hit his last 10 threes. So we got some good movement there. The other 2 seeds, Gonzaga right now, I mean, you take them completely out of the equation, because I don't think there's going to be anything that they can do to prove themselves for a 1 line. Like, I just don't see it on in their resume, but they're right where they want to be with that 2 line. I mean, they're under the radar. They are grown men. This is we're going to talk about all the stuff going on with 26, 27, 28-year-old men going back and getting college eligibility. Gonzaga right now, I mean, they've got 5 adult men starting on that basketball team, and that's something you don't want to see in March, because those guys are grizzled. They're veterans. They know what they're doing. They got a great guard in Super Mario right now, and he's absolutely fantastic. But I have no argument with them in the 2 line right now as well, and I think that's exactly where they want to be.
So that's another team that their resume, they can do nothing to improve their resume. I think the only way their resume improves is if Kentucky puts it together, or Oregon puts it together, like the teams they've beat put it together, because they hate their business. But then again, you've got a 40-point loss hanging to Michigan, so I don't know that you'll ever eclipse Michigan. But Gonzaga is very interesting. That's a very scary 2 seed for me with the way they're playing right now. I mean, the Oregon game, and Michigan kind of put something out there that I wonder if in March was about the only time we'll see anybody be able to do this. But bigger guys that could, because Biddle had a great game, and of course everybody on Michigan had a great game.
Yeah,
they struggled with a very good big guy that could take on one of their 2 big guys and play them 1-on-1. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But like I said, we won't be able to see it till March. But Vandy being a 2 seed was.
I don't like it.
This is where metrics are getting in the way of resumes. Like
Yeah.
it matters that you play a non-conference schedule. Otherwise, we're going to run into as basketball, we're going to run into what college football is starting to become, and all the big boys are not scheduling anybody to play because all it matters is wins and losses at the end, how bad you be, and you can blow teams out like crazy and make your metrics look pretty, and then you get the better seeds. Because Vandy's resume there's nothing on there of any value. Like you're looking at it, your best wins are UCF, Memphis, Wake, and maybe St. Mary's.
You squeaked one out against Memphis, which
About to say,
Memphis. Go ahead, Brad.
yeah, that's the Memphis game. I felt like that is it really if they're going to be a 2 seed, that game should have had a much bigger difference than there was.
Well, so I was going to add an asterisk to that because Memphis playing the right team can completely disrupt what they're trying to do. And what Vanderbilt does is a very heavily offensive reliant team. And if you get big and physical with an offensive team, I mean, it can really, really disrupt their game plan. They did the same thing against Purdue. Like they had Purdue in a binder for a while. I mean, it was just like. And that's just kind of the way Memphis is designed to play. They're big, they're long, they're physical, they're athletic. And I think the way they disrupted Purdue, they did the exact same thing against Vanderbilt. And the only difference is I genuinely thought Memphis was going to beat Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next day they came back and just put an absolute hurt on Wake Forest. And that, to me, that's a big win because, Wake Forest, Memphis.
Michigan overtime, didn't they?
The what? The Memphis game went in overtime. Wake Forest was decided by 20 or 30 points.
No, Wake Forest took Michigan to overtime, I believe. Right?
Yeah. Yes, they did. Yeah, because we watched that game in Alabama, and we were almost convinced that Wake Forest was going to pull that one off. So it's like if you went like on paper what these matchups look like, then it starts to look a little bit worse for some of these teams. But like. You really can't hold that same standard.
But Memphis shouldn't count as a good win, even if it's an overtime. Their wins consist of SWAC schools, Baylor and San Francisco. We've lost to Mississippi, UNLV, Purdue, Wake Forest. Louisville got them by 26. Vandy and Mississippi State. Like to be a good win, you got to beat somebody with a decent resume, and Memphis isn't carrying that right now.
So Memphis, to me, have anybody ever played Mike Tyson's Punch-Out? So if you ever play Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, there is a character called Don Flamingo, and the first time you fight him, it's like not a big deal, but the second time you fight him, before you get to the Bald Bull 2, he's an absolute pain in the ass, and that's how I feel like Memphis is. Like you're gonna beat him, but they're gonna be a pain in the ass. That's how I always felt about the second time you fight Dom Flamingo and Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. That is Memphis. Like it's just like hey, you got your shots in, but it's taking you a lot longer to put this thing away than it did the first time.
Yeah, I'm not saying Memphis is a bad team. I'm just like if I'm looking at it from the resume standpoint, like you can't count them as a good win, and then like have them have the resume that they have. That's where, like I said, the metrics part, and that's what's propping up the Memphis team. Like the same thing for St. Mary's and SMU. None of these teams have resumes that of any value, but somehow they have bumped up Vanderbilt enough to be a 2 seed over teams like Louisville, who has some good wins, or who are all the 3 seeds here. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, let's look at the 3 seeds because then we have an argument to like Vandy's over Houston.
So 3 seeds are.
Does that feel right to anybody?
No.
Yeah. Houston,
Michigan State,
Illinois, Michigan State, and BYU. Like how
does that feel right to anybody?
No, that comparing the resumes, this is crazy. And like this, I don't know. Joey Brackets, I think, has an agenda that he tries to push. And I don't know that he tries to be accurate on these things. So I don't know, because Vandy being there makes zero sense. And if you go back through the history of the brackets ever, there would be at no point if Vandy's resume stopped today that Vandy would be a 2 seed. They would be questionable if they're a bubble team. Like there's no wins on there of value.
Sorry to interrupt here. Seton Hall just went on an absolute tear over the course of a minute and a half. and went from down like 6 to just about up 6 here in just a second. Like, absolutely incredible.
You
Again,
all
did not like
learn the hard way. Don't mess around with Shane Holloway. Put him away when you can put him away. Don't let him hang.
Yeah, it is. I did not enjoy watching this game. I'm glad that it'll be off my TV in about 3 seconds. So
Don't you feel like the Illinois is a little high?
no,
You think the 3 is where they belong?
yeah, I think they're
I
gonna.
want them there. I just don't know. I'll be curious. I just don't have the confidence they're gonna be able to keep that.
I don't think they'll ever get as high as a 2.
No.
I think the 2 is their ceiling. I think they'll never get as low as a 5. Like, I think they're going to be in that. I think they're going to be in that top 16 that they do on CBS Sports. It's like my favorite time of year because it knows, like, it's like the signal that March is right around the corner, and you're going to hear those top 16 teams, and you hope your team is in it. I think Illinois is going to flirt right around in there.
I'm with you on that.
They've got, again, they play in the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
There's plenty of opportunities for them to get there. I don't know. They've not done anything impressive right now so far. They need Texas Tech to really step it up, and they're going to need some help. They're going to need some wins here in the Big Ten and they need Tennessee to keep playing well because, like, you've got a 4-point loss that basically a home game to Alabama. You've got a 13-point loss for basically home game to Connecticut, and then you lost to Nebraska at home. Those are penalizing. I don't know that. I think the 5 seed is very much on the table for 5 or 6 is very much on the table for this Illinois team with how they've been playing versus where they're at right now.
Yeah, I think a 6 might be a worst case scenario. I think a 5 is like, 5 is like, yeah, everything didn't pan out exactly the way we wanted it to, so here we are at a 5. So
Yeah.
there is one matchup I do want to say on Joey brackets that is a potential conversation starter and an opportunity to piss off Kentucky fans. In the hypothetical that this bracket like completely pans out, on the 7 to 10 matchup is Kentucky St. Louis. So we would have a rematch of Purdue and Kentucky from the preseason exhibition. Is that something we want to see?
It would be fun. Have some real stakes on that game versus
like and like, so I mean, obviously Kentucky's start to the year wasn't exactly ideal compared to Purdue's, which, I mean, obviously a blip in the radar with the Iowa State game, but kind of like going in complete opposite directions now with a healthy Lowe and Quaintance playing for Kentucky right now. I think they're on an upward trajectory, and we'll see how this all pans out come conference play. But I would really like to see that, like an actual game, and then see the end result and then have a discussion about a real basketball game with real stakes, as opposed to what happened when they won an exhibition game that meant absolutely nothing and their record was still 0-0, and then they came out in the first 3 months of the season have had some pretty bad losses.
Yeah, and pretty embarrassing.
I mean, it's interesting to see them at the 7 seed because that'll be. I'm very interested to see what happens with that Kentucky team now with Quintonitz and Lowe healthy, and how long both of them stay healthy, because they're going to go through a very physical SEC that like is going to come at them strong, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But there's some fun matchups out there that of course that Joey Brackets has. Like, I think that Georgia UCF game would be a blast on the opening, and then Michigan. If everything plays out right, Michigan State, St. John's, or not, St. John's and Duke would be very interesting to see with the contrast of styles.
I like the Louisville Alabama goal. I think that matchup would be fun.
That would be fun. That'd be a lot of fun.
You get Tennessee and Kansas again would be be a fun rematch to see what happens there.
Speaking of Tennessee, did you guys see Zakai getting interviewed on the sideline? Just
Yeah, I've got that
love
recording
seeing that.
back to see what he's up to. I'm telling you, there's not going to be too long till he's on the bench there next to Barnes. I think that's where he ends up. But as soon as the space opens up for him.
Is there? I mean, I thought, I probably should have looked deeper into this, but I'm still kind of surprised the fact that there's 10 teams from the SEC being included here. But that number just seems really, really, really high. But then again, who else would it be though?
Well, yeah. I don't. 10 teams feels awful high, but also when you consider the size of the conference, it's going to be, you're always going to get, I think 10 is not as impressive as it sounds once you consider the size of the conferences now.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it, because to me, I'm thinking 10, like that there's some sticker shock there, but no, I mean, but then again, who's going to fill in those other spots? I think that Big East with 5 is still.
Yeah, but like it's also counting the teams in the play-in, right? Because you've got Oklahoma there, Oklahoma, Ohio State there for the big SEC and Big Ten, then you've got Butler and Miami. But that kind of brings me to something I wanted to point out. I find it absolutely interesting that Butler is in the last 4 in, and the first 4 out is Boise State, but Boise State beat Butler.
Yeah.
I know I've been joking about punishing Boise for the D2 team loss, but that feels a little too much to have them miss the tournament.
Feels personal.
Yeah, that's a little bit.
State.
Yeah, that's a little too much. But I don't know. That's what I think is fun about the last 4 buys. Never in a million years would I've put LSU there at the preseason, but I feel it feels okay right now. Oklahoma being the last team in is, I'm not sure they deserve it yet. We'll see what happens, because I think that if I'm not, like, obviously I don't know Joey, so we're not texting, but it feels like he forgot about Butler and Boise State matchup, because Oklahoma makes it in over Oklahoma State and they just played in Oklahoma one. So it's like, well, why does that head-to-head matchup work? But the Butler Boise one doesn't.
And this is why this is fun, because it's December. We're in like the last day of December, and we're talking about this. Baylor, for example, is the last 4 bye, but they're about to have an NBA player on their team. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen there? And then obviously IU's the last 4 bye right now. And do we have? We're in December. I still don't know what to think about IU. Like, they've got a home game against Washington on Sunday.
Yeah,
and that will be their first game in like 2 weeks. So
I love it that long.
I hope the last game was on the 20th.
Whew. That was a long time to be checking that list.
Let me hold on before we get fact checked, because I'm sure there's IU fans that know so much about basketball that are less than 40 years old that want to talk about 5 banners. Hold on, let me look here.
While you're looking at that, let me post something. I feel like I'm getting deja vu right now, but
they played on the 22nd.
22nd. Okay. Is IU still considered a blue blood to you all? I think you've asked this before.
No.
Or can you lose your blue blood status? Can you lose your blue blood card?
Yes.
I think IU has.
Yes.
IU's a football school now.
Yeah. Which is weird to say. Does it roll off the tongue?
Yeah, I mean,
no, they're not a blue blood anymore. I think UConn is snuck right into that spot.
You've got to at least be relevant and making the second weekend more than like once in the past like decade to keep that.
He said you have to win. You have to have won at least 3 natties to be considered a blue blood.
They've got 5.
Yeah.
When we're during Prohibition, right. And then a couple under Knight. Bobby Knight had arguably the best team in NCAA basketball history, the undefeated year. But Bobby Knight's been gone for like 20 years, guys. It's time to move on. You're not a blue blood anymore. You've had some pretty good seasons, but you haven't had any real tournament success since 2002. And honestly, like, you're a football school now. Everybody cares about football. You've got a mid-major all-star basketball team, and maybe you'll have something next year, but this year it ain't it. I don't think you guys have it. And if we're talking about relevancy, I hate saying it because they beat my Boilers, but UConn's a blue blood. And there's no real denying that, because in the last 25 years, they've got 5 national championships, and you can't argue that kind of success.
Yeah.
You could almost say the same thing about Florida. They've got 3, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, this year is not the year everybody expected, but don't count Todd Golden
yet. That's a perfect segue.
UCLA is the interesting one to me, because I mean they go through stretches of being extremely relevant and then get just left out of everything. Like back to 2020, 2021, they were in the Final Four, then made 2 Elite Eights after that, missed the tournament, lost the second round, and then we'll see what they do this year. But they haven't won one since Wooden? When's the last time they won one?
Yeah, but then when they won them, they won like 50 of them.
Right.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. They won in '95. I'm sorry, '95.
yeah.
Jim Eric was the coach, but
Yeah, we're at
yeah,
the
like
30-year mark now.
it's crazy. But I still consider them blue blood because they're relevant every almost every year, and that's where Indiana's lost. They haven't been relevant basketball wise in a long time.
Yeah, I saw this. It was a post here the other day, and it was just like, like who's the number one basketball program in each state, and then they posted IU basketball in Indiana, and I'm like, if this is going through the aggregate, I'm still not 100% sure because even with 5 national titles, your record against your in-state rival is absolutely abysmal, and then go break it down by conference championships. But yeah, at the end of the day, all that really matters is natties, and that's what counts as blue bloods. And congratulations to IU basketball for having 5 of them. But guess what? The last one was in 1980s. Yeah, we're coming up on 40 years. So
Sorry to derail us on that, but I just think that's a fun question. It was on another podcast, and I was just like, interesting thought. And they mentioned Florida as well in that conversation.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
Florida's flirting with becoming a blue blood. I mean, if you win 3 national
it's
titles
very
in
interesting.
25 years, I mean that's saying something.
It's very interesting to me too because like
Oh, there's your guys'
how
40 points right there.
yeah do you do you count like to me winning back-to-back titles shouldn't account for more than one in this conversation because basically the same team won twice. Okay, good. You put one good team together. Like, wait, like
Yeah.
like I'm not saying the national title doesn't count. What I'm saying is when you're considering like if you're saying you need at least 3 titles for Blue Bloods, I want 3 different teams, not the same team everybody coming back. Like even if you wanted to go to Duke, like then what was it 90? Like
Yeah.
you brought back everybody and of course you just won it last year. Like it's not saying it's not hard to do. It's just sometimes it's like if you're going to be viewed as the school from a like overhead view, I want to see multiple teams. Like UConn going back to back is fine, but like also they had the Kimba one, they had the Shabazz Napier one, then you have the back to back one, and then you have whatever else they're going to do. Is like that's how you get there. To me, like that's
Yeah,
at the
I
back
think
to
it's
back
more
there
that
with
they've sustained their success really well. Like a UConn team sustained their success. Like they're not going anywhere. They're like on everybody's radar every year. Even when they're a 4 seed, everybody's like, shit, we got to play UConn. Like I remember that last year, like they were playing that Florida team, and they had Florida on the ropes. Florida, your eventual national title team, Florida, they were on the ropes. It took some late game heroics that dude, I mean, did in 3 or 4 different games, but he had to really put it on display against UConn there.
yeah. It's just, like it's just a thought I've always had that like back to back shouldn't count for making like you as a program dominating because you had one really good team that ran it twice. So, but that doesn't mean it's super easy to do or anything. But if you're going to be in the upper echelon, that's already hard to do. So it's not give extra credit for recruiting one very good team.
Well, is there anything else from the true? Well, is there anything else of the bracketology world that we haven't already covered? I think if you would have told us on this podcast that North Carolina would be a 4 seed, or projected 4 seed right now, I think we'd be a little bit surprised.
Yeah,
St. John's around a 7 too.
And
I don't know if they've earned a 7.
that's
I think
friendly. Yeah, it's being friendly.
I think Florida at 5 is
Alabama's
friendly too.
Alabama's dropped down to a 4 line. I think they're going to flirt between the 3 and the 4 all year. It's just going to depend on how they play in conference. But Alabama's one of those teams that just like if they're hot, you're not going to beat them. If they're off, South Carolina can beat them. Like it's just
rebound consistently, they would be a different team.
That's not going to happen. They're not going to rebound. I mean, if your front court got out rebounded by Braden Smith, you have no business talking about rebounding to anybody ever in the history of anything. Like, sorry, that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I do want to note, I've been following this team for a while because I make a lot of money betting on them. But the St. Thomas team, that's the 15 seed right.
Oh, yeah.
15 seed right now against Vandy. This is the first year they're eligible to make the tournament, and I have no doubt they're going to win that conference and be there because they are a very, very good team. They were, I think, essentially kicked out of whatever division they were in because they kept winning too much. That's going to be fantastic. Like I do not want to see them in the tournament because they play a fun style of basketball, and they're very good at it. And now, if Vandy draws them, that would be extremely interesting to see for a two. Like if you're going to pick a 2-15 matchup, to pick the 15 seed. That's where I would pick. But that's a team to keep your eye on from a mid-major standpoint. I think they'll be better than a 15 seed coming as they come through. But just a fun story that team that should have been there probably the last 2 years because of the stupid rule that the NCAA has about weight. Haven't been eligible to make it.
So yeah, I think that's all. That's interesting, Jake. I need to look more into them. That'd be everybody's. That's for the bench. That's the homework. Go check out St. Thomas.
Yeah.
Go check them out. That's interesting.
And while you're checking out St. Thomas, check out WinWare. Brad. Yeah, take it away, Brad.
Yeah, go check it out. Go get your WinWare. Put your money where your mouth is. Wear it on your shirt with loud and proud. I don't know if they've got a Minnesota. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they have WinWare Minnesota shirt. That'd be quite close. You can scribble it in. But yeah, go check those guys out and use our promo code bench points when you go and check out there. And yeah, hey, if you forgot somebody on your Christmas list and you're like, shit, what am I going to do? Great option. WinWare Apparel. They'll come in clutch for you. And so go check their stuff out. Or use some of that money. Maybe it's some of that Christmas money that grandma gave you.
Yeah.
That's all sweet.
The thing we're working on doing something for March Madness, having a little bit of giveaway with them. So, just keep supporting them so that way they can give us more free stuff.
That's right. That's right. Do your boys a favor. All right. So let's do I think we'll be able to get through a pretty solid list here. To do a power ranking, like a top 10 power ranking for bench points here. Do we want to do it? I just had this thought. Sam, I know you posed this, and I think it's a good idea. Is it the ranking the top 10 from the first half or what we're projecting for the second half?
I'd say we just do like what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Who are our best teams?
Okay. I mean, this is
Sorry, are we coming to an agreement here?
Well, I think your 1A, 1B, without argument, without question, without debate, without drama, is Michigan and Arizona, whatever order you want to put them in.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably go Michigan 1 just because
well, you'll hear from all the Arizona fans.
The amount of wins, that
right.
like, the win margin is added up to a small city population at this point, just against top 25 teams. But then, like, there's not a big gap between 1 and 2. It's just if your win margin is going to be near 200 against top 25 teams, you've earned the 1 seed.
Yeah, and then also you got to look at and we've talked about metrics and what they mean or don't mean, but what they're doing in KenPom is borderline historic. What they're doing on the trapezoid of excellence is borderline historic. They're running out of room on that shape. It's absolutely fascinating. But look, I was the biggest Arizona hater in this group. One thing I will not do is bet against Arizona right now. So I cannot pick Michigan over Arizona, and I also cannot pick Arizona out of Michigan. So I'm going to cop out and say 1A, 1B.
All right, Brad, you're the time.
That works.
All right, so we're going to go from 1 to 3.
Yeah, I'm okay with that because I think they have literally, again, I'm going back to UConn Purdue in 23-24 because what they were able to do throughout the entire season. They had some blips in the radar, and guess what? Michigan and Arizona are going to have some blips in the radar, but they are, as of right now, in December 30th, 2025, year of our Lord, they are cutting away from everybody else in the country.
Mm-hmm. So for this 3 spot, we've got the AP poll, which I guess they took the week off.
Yeah, they did.
Who does that?
Fuck.
But
do you expect those riders to work? No.
Yeah.
No.
On Christmas?
I still there's not basketball going on.
We got Iowa State, UConn, Purdue, Duke.
I've got in my 3 spot. I've got to personally go with Iowa State because they went into Mackey and absolutely shellacked the number 1 team in the country at the time. Again, asterisks. I think Purdue played their absolute worst game. They shot horribly. I think if they shoot up to par, I think this is a completely different game. I think going into halftime, we're looking at a completely different outcome in the second. But Iowa State went into Mackey and handled business, and they've handled business everywhere else. They're 12-0 right now. They look absolutely fantastic. They're playing absolutely fantastic. I personally don't have an argument with anybody else above them outside of Michigan and Arizona.
See, I think Gonzaga maybe for the 3. Your one loss is
Their one loss is very, very glaring.
Yes, but then you've got wins of Alabama. They won by double digits, murdered Kentucky, UCLA double digits. Oregon was 9. And like, and they did
Oregon,
they did most of this on neutral floors too. Creighton by 30, Oklahoma by almost 30. Like it's how much you want to weigh getting destroyed by Michigan, because Iowa State, outside of the Purdue game, it's a 1-point win on a neutral floor to St. John, a 30-point win over Syracuse on a neutral floor, and a 4-point win that probably should have been a loss at home to Iowa. I don't know. Like, they went into Mackey and did that. I'm not trying to take it away. I think there's an argument to put Gonzaga, if we're just doing based on what we've seen at the 3 mark.
Me personally, I don't have Gonzaga in my top 5. But I like your argument. I do like your argument. Getting 40-pieced anywhere is never a good look. But like, I think you could take. Now, my number 4 is going to be pretty obvious. Jake, you and I can go back and forth on UConn and Duke again if you'd like. But my number 4 is UConn. They've handled business in the non-con. Their one loss is a marginal loss to an Arizona team that's been absolutely fantastic, and they were missing 2 starters. They have some issues. I don't think they're a finished product yet, and I think Braylon Mullins still needs to get some reps in. I think Terrace Reed coming off of injury has looked pretty good. Rivey's kind of getting back into the groove a little bit. Like he's starting to look like a versatile 5-out big man. I really like this UConn team, and I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. So they're in my 4 spot.
I mean, it's fair. Like the argument is there because, I mean, if you want to compare win for win, Florida, like UConn beat Florida by more than what Duke beat them. It's just, I think Michigan State counts more than it is a better win than anything that UConn has, especially since it was at Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I'm not going to fight you over 4th and 5th because that's who would be 4 and 5 for me. Because I like it's the 6 through 10 that I think it gets really interesting. I think your top 5, like me, I had Gonzaga at the 3 just based on what they've done. But then I had Duke 4 and UConn 5. That's what I'm not going to like. It's not a hill I'm going to die on.
Right.
But that's my top 5.
See,
I could be the weird AP voter that has Gonzaga way too high. And this comes from probably the biggest Gonzaga hater, you know.
Right. I'm rounding out my top 5. So I've got Michigan, Arizona, 1A, 1B, Iowa State, UConn. I still got Purdue over Duke right now. Obviously their loss is very glaring, but again, I think it was like a worst case scenario game. And ever since that loss, I think Purdue has handled business. Duke, with some recency bias, the loss to Texas Tech, it's not great. The way they lost it wasn't great. It was, if it would have been like a neck and neck game the entire way and they would have lost it on a buzzer beater, I think I would have stomached it a little bit more than Duke just kind of completely collapsing on themselves and like kind of opening up a very glaring wound that was just kind of bandaged over a little bit. And I think like Purdue has the same flaw, and I think that's what separates some of these, like your top 3 from your next 3. I think Purdue is so heavily reliant on getting the ball in the hole that if they cannot do that on any given night, anybody's going to beat them. But then, so that's my top 5. I got Michigan, Arizona, Iowa State, UConn, Purdue, then Duke at the 6th spot, followed by Gonzaga.
See, Kim Palm agrees with me. He goes Michigan, Arizona, Gonzaga, but then it throws an Iowa State, Purdue for the top 5. It has Duke and Connecticut on the 6 and 7, and it's really not that close. I mean, Michigan has a 4-point lead on net rating on everybody on second place.
Yeah,
and then Arizona and Gonzaga are kind of tight, and then Gonzaga, Iowa State is super tight. Then after that, there's a bit of a gap between 4 to 5 with Iowa State and Purdue, but then there's a just big, if not bigger, gap from Purdue to Duke, and then a even bigger gap from Duke to Connecticut. But that's just how.
But then we go back to like, how much stock do we want to put into December KenPom? Like I think by December KenPom starts really figuring things out and kind of getting dialed in.
Well, I think so. If I remember correctly, it is like at December it's still like 60% what you did last year being put in, and it starts to level out as conference play, and then starts to tilt the other way. So because players did so well last year that came back, it's really tilts things. Teams like, Iowa State and Gonzaga that had a lot of returning production get really bumped up through the first part of the year, and then not that they come down, but it starts being more about their current team after January.
Yeah.
Because when you're basing those models, you got to base it off something when you're doing your preseason ranking, or like your preseason through like the non-conference and stuff. So you're using last year's data really to forecast it.
Right.
But that gets into fancy math that I can't do.
Yeah. Yeah. Tennessee has officially hit the money line, by the way. They're right at that 44-point mark.
Let's see if they hold on to it.
Is it 44.5?
Yeah, I believe it's 40.
There you go. It's 46. So we're there. We're there.
Why? There's 4 minutes left. Why is our starting five still out there?
Because somebody's got
it's not
he's
our
got that
starting
money
five.
line Tennessee shirt. Cough, cough, Jake. Cough, cough,
Yeah.
Brad. Got that money line Tennessee shirt that they're trying to cash out on. So, and then you just saw Gillespie hit the floor. Maybe it's time to get him out. Was that Gillespie?
No, that was Boswell. Yeah, they've got the same haircut, they're the same size, and they wear single-digit numbers. They're jerks.
Well, they're standing right next to each other.
Yeah. They play the same position. Like, it's not fair. I had the same issue with Proctor and last year, Gafford Duke last year, like the exact
Procter
same.
and Gamble.
Yeah, till Proctor did his braids, and then I was like, oh, thank God, now I can tell them apart. All right, so
Yeah,
Gillespie number 6.
So back to our Brad. You've heard our top 5 or 6.
Yep.
Where are you landing on these lists?
So I'm at Michigan, Arizona, Iowa State, Purdue, then UConn. I feel like Purdue still played really good basketball. Like, it's not like it's been, I mean, I know they got the one blemish, but they're still freaking awesome. Like, I feel like they deserve in that spot. And here's the thing too. I obviously watch Purdue a lot more than I have UConn. So that's just the God's honest truth. So I am a little bit more biased, I think, in that respect. But also, I still think it's still hard, given what Duke has. It's hard to see them outside of the top 5. But that is my top 5.
But I think that's a credit to how like good college basketball is right now in its current state.
Oh yeah.
Your top 10 teams are just absolutely fantastic, and they're like starting to separate themselves really. Like your top 6 really. I mean, like whoever's flirting in that top 6 range is like really just head and shoulders above everybody else in the country. Like anybody outside that top 6 is like that's flirting to get in. I think they all have like arguments, like Gonzaga, like Houston, like they're all 1-loss teams. That's the crazy part, is they're all 1-loss teams. They just have had some like games that make you scratch your head a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, really, and I again, I'm going to bring this up again. UConn's 1 loss is to Arizona by a couple points without a couple starters, and I don't really scratch my head at that one. Like Purdue's loss to Iowa State, yeah, it's a head scratcher because it's like, damn, if we shoot that bad, or are we going to be in trouble? Duke's loss to Texas Tech was a complete collapse. Houston's loss to Tennessee, it was one of those things where it's just like you have 2 defensive-minded teams. Like, and Houston's had problems with some other teams. Like they squeaked one out against Auburn, the Auburn team that's been shellacked by anybody else that was decent enough to play him. You know,
they struggled with MTSU with a 9-point win against MTSU just a couple days ago.
Yeah, and then let's go to Michigan State. Michigan State just struggled against Colgate like yesterday. Like they were down in the second half at one point, like by several points. Like it was like it took Jeremy Fears playing nearly 40 minutes against a team outside the top 100 in KenPom to like really close this thing out. There's question marks with all these teams. Like BYU's got some question marks. Like, are they the greatest second half team or the worst first half team in the country? Like one of the two is happening. But that's what I think I really, really love about like this top 10 right now. We haven't even finished it, but like, you have 3 undefeated teams and then a lot of really, really great 1-loss teams. Like just absolutely fantastic 1-loss teams whose losses are to teams in the top 4 or 5.
Yes.
BYU, bringing up them is like that's who I was going to bring up in this next like 2 or 3 teams, because their 1 loss is Connecticut. That was basically a road game to a Connecticut that did have Terrace Reed played well. They lost by 2. They made a hell of a comeback to make it there too. I think that was also while we were in Alabama. We were watching that one, and it was put on a show because I mean, Debanza got lost in the first half and then figured it out in the second half, and that that team that woke me up to this BYU team, and so now I've been kind of keeping up with them. I've got them probably. Because I've got a hard time for them at 6. It's between Purdue and them for me at my 6. Purdue and BYU because okay, the same reason I tossed that 40-point loss to Michigan out, 30-point loss at home would toss out because one bad game shouldn't. I'm not going to double count it because you had a bad game and somebody else had a good game. So it's. I'm not sure BYU is as good as Purdue, but if we're ranking on based on what they did, and those two teams are neck and neck to me with where they're at resume wise, and so 6-7 there could be either way, whichever one. I'd probably lean more Purdue at 6 just because of trustworthiness. I mean, if somebody
Yeah.
went BYU there, I'm not gonna. It's another one I'm not gonna fight you on.
One thing I will say, if Purdue and BYU played, I would venture to guess that Purdue was up 18 at the end of the first half, and they wind up winning by 2 or losing by 2. Because one, Purdue's historically never protected a lead, and then 2, like it's like BYU is just like insane in the second half. Like
Yep.
the band's all of a sudden, like he goes in the locker room, he drinks whatever the Bugs Bunny juice is, and maybe gets permission to get some poon after the game or something like that from the administration. And gives them some to close this one out. But
permission from the elders.
Right.
But yeah, just so I can kind of keep my own head about where I'm at right now. So I've got, again, Michigan, Arizona, 1A, 1B, Iowa State, UConn, Purdue, Duke, Gonzaga, and then I go BYU, Houston, Michigan State. I don't have Vandy in my top 10, and I'm not going to put them there.
They don't deserve to.
Well, they're 12-0, and I think they're a number 11 in the country on the coaches poll this week. Nope.
Which is something to me. I don't know how any, which I don't really, I mean, the coaches poll, I think is just, it's made by some assistant coach or an analyst. Intern. I don't know. I just find that wild.
You're clean to that money line right now.
Yeah.
You can't hit free throws. So I think Illinois has an argument to be there. I'm not, and I think Louisville has an argument to be up there. I'm not impressed with what Houston's done, so I don't know if I have them in my top 10 right now or Florida, but because I am a little bit impressed, but Louisville will be towards the 10 of mine. The Arkansas and Tennessee games spaced out with the Indiana and Memphis games are just wild turns. I mean, the Kentucky game was kind of expected, but then they don't show up for a first half, have a chance to win against Arkansas, lose by 9, get destroyed on the road by Tennessee, or they didn't. But then again, they were without Brown that game. They shoot so many threes. There's so many threes. So they're like, I don't know if what to think about them. So I think but at the same time, they are a very, very talented team. That I probably have at 10, and then I probably have Illinois at 9 just because I believe in what they have at that. And then 8, I don't know who I want to put at 8. I'm so scared of everything because it's just not. I guess Michigan State. I like what they're doing, but for me, 8, 9,
I like
10 just have such glaring holes that
team
easy to pick apart.
They don't feel like a talented team, and they when they play good teams, the good teams don't look good against them, and I think it's just coaches.
It is, but for some reason he can't figure out the last 2 years anybody to get a jump shot, and so I don't know what
Doesn't need it.
Apparently, well, I don't for it. I mean, it came that's the reason they struggled with Oakland. The reason they struggled with Colgate. You can't get stuff going from the outside. I'm just going to pack it in, play a 2-3 zone, and make you beat me for there. And I mean, that's what Duke played a 3-2 on them, and that changed that whole game the last 8 minutes. And you're expecting improvement out of Cohen Carr, and I mean, I know Glenn is out, and that was supposed to kind of fix that. But I mean, Fears goes games without scoring, and that's tough with as much as he has the ball in his hands. And is it Kohler? He's the big white guy that shoots that killed Duke. Is that the right guy?
Yeah,
so he can get hot, but he's such a streaky shooter. There's no consistency there. I don't know. So 8, 9, and 10 to me are just giant holes that are like you could argue to put Alabama there too with the same logic because if you can rebound, you can beat Alabama by 30 if you want to. But even if they're on, because Louisville is such a yo-yo team right now and really dependent on that 3 ball. I think they lead the nation in threes attempted. It's just I don't know. I don't know. Whatever you would put it, 7, 8, 9, 10, I'm fine with. Right? Because I'm not going to argue it.
One outside team that I have an argument for to be in anybody's top 10, and we'll find out more here in the next couple of weeks, is Nebraska. That is a team that I am like extremely high on right now, and I'm like absolutely terrified of from a Purdue fan perspective, because Nebraska has just like been absolutely fantastic, and so we'll obviously see what comes over in the next couple of weeks. But they're like right outside my top 10.
Something good on Friday. They got Michigan State on, so that'll be.
So
it's
something to keep on the radar. Well, like I said, we'll find out more about this team here in the next couple of weeks.
If it makes any difference to Ken Palm's got it 74-73 Michigan State. So that would tell me that the home court advantage is what does it, and he's got Nebraska as the better team with on a neutral floor.
Now, I just said that out loud on this podcast.
I lied that it's at Nebraska. So he's got Michigan State as about a 4 or 5 point better team.
So I want to go ahead and correct myself live on this podcast. I just tuned into New Hampshire, Nebraska, because the Tennessee game wrapped up. They covered Tennessee money line, win-wear apparel. Congratulations. But halftime, Nebraska's up by 3 against a not particularly great New Hampshire team. So
yikes!
We'll see what the second half brings, folks.
Yeah.
So
that's not good for the old Nebraska. That's probably around a 30-point spread.
Yeah, wonder what KenPom had that game at.
About 30.
Fortunately, by 30. Woof. So all right. Well,
yeah. Yeah, I've got Duke at 6, Gonzaga 7, Michigan State 8, BYU 9, Houston 10. I mean, I feel like Kingston Flemings is a bright spot for Houston, and that kid's a baller. And I love watching him play. But I feel like he's had to do way more than maybe they were anticipating.
Yeah.
So and they did. And they've been fun.
Snack has not been offensively good yet.
No, he has not.
All right. So that was fun. I'm glad we did that. That was a good one because I think that kind of does cap things off well for the first half of the year. And obviously we're excited about the second half of the year. I think Florida's going to be the biggest splash for the second half of the year. I think they're going to have a huge turnaround. And I don't know if it's just in trying to get in like a denial state of what they could do to a team like Tennessee, but I feel like Florida is just about to explode. Unless they got some chemistry stuff going on inside the locker room. Maybe there is, I don't know, but I feel like they've got something. They just need to start clicking. When they do, I think they could really run through the SEC pretty.
Yeah, if the guard play stays, if they can they're going to need Boogie to show up. It can't just be Xavier Lee because it's like he showed up the last few games, but can he keep that up? And who knows? Like that's the difference of this Florida team being a great team versus a good one is did they get production out of the starting 1 and 2 guards?
Yep, so true. So for our bench behavior for tonight, again, the NCAA makes their way into the bench behavior conversation with the NCAA eligibility rules. Gosh, what's his name? He's irrelevant. He's the most pointless.
Flowers is the guy that who are you talking? You talking about the NCAA guy?
The NCAA guy, the head of it, that said that it's about an NBA contract. It's like, why didn't you come out with that a few weeks ago? Did you have to look through all of the documents and all the paperwork to make sure that you're not speaking out of your ass? Charlie Baker.
Yeah,
that's who it was.
Yeah, like the NCAA is, like I said last week, is so scared of being sued by anybody and everybody right now. They are slow to react to everything because they're trying to make sure everything's perfect. And like Mark Few said, he said we've got no leadership because it's the wild west out here. Just grabbing a guy that was drafted a couple years ago, it's been playing the last 5 years pro in Spain is fine apparently, and I think he gets 4 years eligibility. How does that make any sense? And then the Flowers guy for the Bulls that's played in 8 games this year in the NBA was starting to look at colleges, and that's when NCAA was forced to make a stand, and they're like, okay, how far have we gone? Let's just cut it one shy of that. These guys are playing in professional leagues overseas. That's a stretch to me to let them come play college. I know it's a bit different because those guys go professional, like starting these professional organizations at like 13, 14 or whatever. So it's kind of murky water if they're really professional players. But like if you're playing one of the top leagues over there, you shouldn't get to come play college over here. Like that's not I don't think that's anywhere
Right.
fair. Definitely not G League. Like
Yeah,
G
and
League
like
is
I was watching,
good.
and God, I never thought I'd find myself agreeing with anything Calipari said, but he was just like, like, why would you recruit high school kids anymore? Like, I'll just go pick the best of the G League, and they'll make more money playing college basketball, and we'll just have a semi-pro league.
Yep.
And that
It's
to
not
me,
wrong.
that's what's like that's what's heartbreaking about this whole thing, because college basketball to me was like the last bastion of pure sport. Like it felt for the most part unbought and paid for. Then NIL started, and certain programs have stayed clean. Some of them have bought rosters and things like that, but they're playing within the rules. And now it's just like, oh, this guy signed an NBA contract, but he doesn't play, and he's got some eligibility left. Great.
Mhm.
Okay, so then let's bend the rules a little bit. Let's bring back Jaden Ivey and Zach Edey for the rest of this year. And now Purdue's got 3 National Player of the Year candidates on one team. Like, great. Like, is that fun? Like, it would be fun for me as a Purdue fan to see all those guys play together, but it's not fun for the country, because you got guys coming back from the NBA, or guys coming back from like lost years of eligibility because they tried to go pro earlier, or they played in some other developmental league or anything like that. It's just terrible for the game. Like, what's going to happen to the 18-year-old kid out of Greenfield, Indiana, that wants to go to like a power conference school, Like, that's going to disappear so that you can get the guy that's not quite making it in the pros on like a G League Ignite team.
Yeah, like what do you do if you're trying to think of a really good example? Kennedy Chandler would be a fun example for Tennessee.
That's
Trayvon Duvall, I think, for Duke. I don't know Purdue's roster as well. I think Carson Edwards played a little bit in the pros, so I don't know if he really counts. But like these guys who've really never seen a minute of actual NBA time, but it's been a handful of years since they've played. Like, are those guys now eligible again if they didn't use all 4 years?
hey,
Or does the eligibility, the still 5-year eligibility clock all of a sudden kick in, and that's the one rule we're gonna hold to? Like, there's so many openings here that it's so weird, and because like Kennedy Chandler and has been killing it in the G League, but he's always been too small to really make it to the NBA. So, like, I mean, I'm sure he would love to come back. I mean, we could absolutely use him this year. It'd be incredible. And I mean, the same thing with like Trayvon Duvall. I think he left after sophomore year, I think, at Duke, but I thought was early. I didn't think he had the game, and it's kind of proven he's never really made an NBA roster. So, like, does he come back now? Like, there's such an opening, and it's a weird opening. And once again, it's not the kids or the coaches that are doing anything wrong. They're playing within the rules they've got that they have. It's just the NCAA had their head buried in the sand and didn't make any adjustments here. And now every line they draw feels very flimsy and is half a breath away from taking to court. And the Foster thing, like I can almost guarantee there's going to be a situation come here in the next couple of years where some guy that's played 2 or 3 games in the NBA is going to sue whatever, get an injunction at some court level, and get to play a year at the college level, make his money, and get redrafted, I guess, or go to free agency, or however that's going to work. And like, yeah, what do you do with this guy for the 20? Does he get drafted again? Like, anyway.
well, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, do you get redrafted?
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, it does. It's again, this is not college basketball anymore. And like, that's what's heartbreaking about it. Like, they need, like, I think Matt Painter came out and said it. Tom Izzo came out and said it. Like, you got some of these big voices in college basketball right now that are basically, it's like, just let us know the rules, we'll abide by them. But right now there are no rules. Nobody knows what's going on. They need some actual leadership. And I hate saying it, because, these are coaches that I've loved for like the last 20 some odd years, but maybe the leadership needs to be one of these guys. It's like, maybe Painter becomes, because Painter's very well respected league wide among the coaches. He does things the right way. He's like a consummate pro, that are too pussyfooted around, like not wanting to get sued. So they're like there are no rules. Like, it's just like, let it be somebody who's like lived it, who's recruited through it, who's like gone through an NIL, who's gone through the COVID nonsense, gone through the eligibility nonsense. Let them be the voice. Let them be the leader in the room, because I think it's time that we stop like having these guys that know nothing about the sport and know nothing about like the impact it has to these schools and the fans and like the country. Let it be somebody that like is actually in it.
100%.
Yeah,
I did so much.
I didn't think we could get much worse than Mark Emmert being the head of the NCAA, but now this Charlie Baker guy seems to be even
Not off
slower
to a
and
great start.
and more scared. Like, I mean, I get it. I've never ran anything that has anywhere near $1 billion in revenue every year, and that's just the March Madness tournament. So, like, God knows the pressure the guy's under, but it feels like there was a very obvious, easy fix here. That was, if you play professional at any level.
Done.
Sorry, like we are
Done.
your entry level to, because the players are getting paid now. We are entry level to professional basketball, but that would have made it very easy and very simple. And it would have sucked for the European guys, but they're in Europe. Figure it out. You're not over here. I prefer it to be high school athletes and keep that dream alive, because high school basketball is some of the most fun thing you'll ever watch. But whatever, we're here now, and it's gonna be a painful adjustment. And the podium has swung so far one way, it's gonna swing back here in the next few years, and it's gonna get real weird.
Speaking of painful adjustments, we might need to start stretching our legs more.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I feel that. Coaches give us the side eye.
Yeah, like I've been potty training a 2-year-old, so my time on the floor it's gonna hurt.
I'll catch y'all next blowout.
See y'all.
Hopefully blowout, not potty training blowout.
Yeah,
Point.
I've seen both. Today.
That's